Hello and welcome to another episode of Perspectives. I'm Phil Gioia, Client Portfolio Manager here at DoubleLine, and today I'm joined by Paul Schroeder, Relationship Manager, covering our insurance clients. Paul, thanks for joining the show today.
Thanks for having me, Phil.
Of course, I think we're going to have a really good conversation about different insurance companies, but before getting into that, you and I recently wrote a white paper titled Securitized Solutions for Insurance Asset Management. And in that paper, we talked about a lot of things. We talked about how it's a pretty challenging environment for insurance investors today, right? There's policy uncertainty, there's geopolitical uncertainty. When you look at
Yeah,
fixed income, there's historically tight spreads across a lot of different sectors.
yeah.
But we also talked about how we've seen a lot of insurance investors utilize more securitized products in their portfolios. But maybe before getting into all of that, we can take a step back and for our viewers that might not be as familiar with the insurance channel, maybe just talk about the different types of insurance companies.
I'd say the main types of insurance investors at a high level are life companies, property and casualty, also referred to as P&C, as well as health. It's important to know about their liabilities. So generally speaking, if you could imagine a spectrum going from left to right, with the left hand of the spectrum being the shortest liabilities and the right hand of the spectrum being the longest liabilities. The longest liabilities would be represented by a life company. The shortest liabilities would be the left end of the spectrum would be a health company, and in the middle would be P&C, closer to health and life.
So what impacts those different liabilities, right? How do you kind of determine where those insurance companies sit on that spectrum?
It all has to do with the type of claims they're liable for, right? So the reason that life insurance companies have longer liabilities is because they have actuaries who are very proficient at predicting when pools of people will pass. And because of that, they tend to have portfolios that are longer duration, that have less need for liquidity, and tend to be more book yield and ALM focused. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, say a health company, again, has to do with the type of claims they have to pay. Think of things like medical costs and drug prices, and those are much harder to predict and they're much harder to model out into the future. So they tend to have much shorter liabilities with a greater need for liquidity and also tend to be more total return focused. And P&C, again, their liabilities are longer than health and shorter than life, definitely closer to the length of a health company's liabilities. But that's because, again, their claims are things like hurricanes and fires, and they can model those liabilities further out into the future than, say, a health company, but not nearly as far as a life company, generally speaking. So those P&C companies also tend to be shorter duration, have a need for liquidity, and also tend to be total return focused. However, I've definitely seen P&C companies that are book yield and ALM focused as well.
So it sounds like it's a lot of asset and liability matching. And, just a quick story. I actually interned at an insurance company in college, and it was actually very interesting to see how accurate those actuaries can be in predicting when these insurance companies will need those cash flows. So outside of matching assets to liabilities, right, maybe what are some other factors that insurance companies might consider when thinking about their overall asset allocation mix?
Things like tax status, accounting considerations can impact the way an insurance portfolio is managed. But I think a consideration that's probably important to highlight is what's called risk-based capital, or also known as RBC. It's very important for regulators to ensure that insurers remain solvent and they're able to pay out their liabilities and their claims. And because of that, insurers have to pledge capital when they invest in riskier assets. Think, for example, if an insurer is to invest in the US Treasury bond, that's essentially risk-free, so it would carry a risk weight of 0, whereas equities are much riskier with a lot more volatility, so the capital charge is much more significant. These capital charges dilute their insurer's returns, so all insurers are focused on capital, but I would say, in my experience, definitely the life companies tend to be more focused on optimizing that ROC than, say, health and PNC, which they do as well, but it's more of a focus for life.
So a number of factors that insurance companies consider, just like, individual investors or institutional investors as well. But we talked about at the beginning a little bit how in that paper, we examined how insurance companies were utilizing more securitized products in their portfolios, right? Things like agency mortgages, things like commercial real estate loans, asset-based financing. So in your conversations with, some of our insurance clients or insurance investors, maybe what stands out for why you're seeing this migration towards securitized products in insurance companies' portfolios?
There's definitely been a lot of demand for securitized fixed income assets. I would say that a lot of insurers are probably still overweight corporate credit. And the reason why insurers like securitized fixed income is for the yield pickup, because of the diversification that it provides away from other asset classes like corporate credit. And then also it has a more attractive ROC.
So for a lot of the same reasons that, investors are utilizing securitized credit, right? Maybe a higher yield, diversification from other asset classes in their portfolios, and then to the unique kind of needs of insurance companies matching those cash flow needs. So maybe to wrap up here, we can talk a little bit about DoubleLine's expertise in the insurance space, right? Maybe what makes DoubleLine stand out as it relates to our insurance clients.
Well, one thing that a lot of people I don't think they know is that actually of DoubleLine's AUM, 10% of it is in insurance assets. And as a matter of fact, our first institutional client was an insurer invested in a securitized mandate. And, I think that DoubleLine is best in class securitized fixed income. In addition to that, the focus on risk management and risk adjusted returns aligns really well with insurers' needs to avoid impairments and downgrades. What I will say with my experience working with insurance companies, it's not only about great risk adjusted returns and great risk management, they're looking for a partnership. And here at DoubleLine, we provide that partnership to provide best in class custom solutions and access to our investment team and access to our best ideas. Ultimately, we're here to make sure that we take care of our insurance clients and make them happy.
Yeah, and maybe we're a little bit biased because we work at DoubleLine, but I would share that same sentiment that we are best in class and securitized. And clearly, we have the resources now. We have a dedicated relationship manager for our insurance clients and prospects, and yourself. So I think we do have that strong partnership and a strong history of partnering with insurance clients. So, Paul, I thought this was very helpful. Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you.
For viewers, if you would like to learn more about DoubleLine's insurance capabilities or would like to learn more about our securitized strategies, please visit doubleline.com or email info@doubleline.com. Thank you.